Canada and the United States jointly and equally support the staffing, maintenance, and programming of Roosevelt Campobello International Park. In that spirit of cooperation, I would like to extend a special welcome to the dignitaries from the United States and Canada who have joined us today. And you will be hearing from some of them in a few minutes.
Votre présence ici souligne l'importance de ce parc et les liens forts qui unissent nos pays. Nous sommes reconnaissants de votre soutien continu et de votre dévouement à la préservation de ce monument précieux pour les générations futures.
The Governing Commission is shared equally by Canada and the United States. Would all the Commission members please stand? Would all the Commission members please stand? And their spouses and families are with them. I would like to especially thank our predecessors in leadership who are here today. My cousin, Christopher Roosevelt, who has spent many years in service on this commission, and likewise Edward McLean, who has been many years in leadership here on the commission. We are also deeply honored by the attendance today of members of the Passamaquoddy tribe. The Passamaquoddy people have lived in this region for millennia and on this island for thousands of years, long before the arrival of European settlers. Their history, culture, and contributions are an integral part of the story of this land and even of my grandfather's time here. We recognize and honor the enduring presence of the Passamaquoddy tribe, and we are committed to working together to ensure that their heritage and friendship is preserved, respected, and appreciated. The tribe was here to welcome our ancestors, and they are here to welcome us today. I'd ask Chief Bassett and Vice Chief Neptune to come to the podium.
Thank you. Woli Zebawale. That means good morning in my Passamaquoddy language. It's an honor to be here. My name is Buzahas Bassett. That's 14 letters in my first name. The vice chief said he couldn't pronounce it either. But that means robin in my language. There's a story behind that. If you'd like to know it, pull me aside later. So again, my name is Buzahas Bassett. It's an honor to be here on the 60th anniversary to share it with all of you. I welcome everybody to the Passamaquoddy homeland and territory. I really appreciate what the Roosevelts have done with this land. It's beautiful. They take care of it. We all take care of it. I remember as a child I would take my father's boat with him and my mother, and we'd come over here to Campobello. We'd pick sweetgrass right down the road from here. And we're still connected here. Just this morning I walked down the path and picked raspberries and ate them for my breakfast. They were delicious. The Passamaquoddy word for Campobello is Ibarquit. So we still share these names with everybody here. And I'd like to share one word for everybody here. It's Needub. If you can all say that. Needub. That means my friend. We're all friends. We all share the same common goals. Family, country, and faith. Those are all the goals that we all share, and we'll forever share those. I remember as a kid, I would jump into the canoe, and I'd go to the islands my grandfather used to go to, and he used to collect seagull eggs. And that was right down the road. It took me an hour to get here this morning. But if an eagle was to fly from here to the vice chief's house, it would take a couple of minutes. I am very honored to welcome everybody here to our homelands. And I am very honored, again, to be part of this great occasion.
Thank you.
Thank you. Willie one?
Good morning. I too am very, very honored to be here today. This is our second event that the chief and I attended in 2 days. We've got one more tomorrow, so we've been pretty busy throughout every work day, I guess, every work week. But as the chief said, welcome to the homeland of the Passamaquoddy tribe. I'm Ernie Neptune, the vice chief of the Passamaquoddy tribe at Pleasant Point. Campobello is one of the most beautiful islands in the Passamaquoddy Bay. And as the chief mentioned, taking care of this island as it is, as I see, this has been a long, long time since I've been here. It's beautiful. I told Donald Sucktomer I'm gonna bring my wife here. It's just that beautiful. Thank you for all of your effort for that. My people have been here since the last ice age of about 15,000 years ago. My family line were the hereditary chiefs of the tribe. We met Champlain in 1604 when he landed at St. Croix Island. We helped with that effort of their survival. Very, very important time frame in our history. My tribe has a long relationship with the Roosevelt family and even a longer relationship with Campobello Island. When Franklin Roosevelt was a young boy, he was befriended by Chief Toma Joseph. Much of his baskets are in Franklin's house were made by him. The birchbark canoe that you've seen at the center was also made by Chief Toma Joseph and given to young Franklin. My great-grandfather, Chief William Neptune, often visited President Roosevelt when he came to the island in the 1930s and 40s. We are here today to help celebrate the 60th anniversary of the formation of the Roosevelt Campobello International Park. Congratulations to keeping this place special and beautiful for all people to visit. Willie one, thank you.
Thank you, Chief Bassett and Vice Chief Neptune. Alors que nous célébrons le 60e anniversaire du Parc international Roosevelt Campobello, je suis ravi de vous partager quelques-unes des développements excitants au parc. Nous avons récemment réalisé des faits marquants remarquables. En 2023, nous avons eu un nombre record de visiteurs, d'expériences visiteurs, au-delà de 225 000, 225,000 visitors to the park en 2023. Nous avons introduit des expositions tournantes. Nous avons introduit des comédies musicales dans l'après-midi au Hubbard Cottage et un nouveau programme du FDR Happy Hour. I would encourage everybody to attend that one, especially if you like. I heard it was a terrible martini, but if you like martinis, je vous encourage fortement. Notre parc fait également l'objet de projets de transformation, notamment un réseau de sentiers innovateurs traversant le parc. Dans les prochains mois, nous aurons une ouverture officielle un des nouveaux tracés qui est incroyable. Je vous encourage à aller le visiter cet après-midi. C'est pas encore prêt, mais so we're going to have a new trail opening up very soon. I would encourage everybody to go and have a look at it. It's not quite ready for prime time, but it is impressive, even if it's not ready for prime time. Puis ce nouveau tracé va nous donner accès à de nouvelles zones naturelles et des sites culturels incroyables. Parmi les autres réalisations clés, nous avons fait des rénovations majeures à nos bâtisses et au chalet historique, le lancement de nouveaux programmes de stage et amélioration, tels que l'Internet haute vitesse. Doesn't sound like a big thing, but high-speed Internet is good, and it's much better now. Ainsi que des voies pour les pollinisateurs.
Our mission is twofold: to honor Franklin D. Roosevelt and to foster unity between Canada and the United States, while our vision aims to inspire understanding and respect through immersive island experiences. We honor the legacies and ideals of Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt. We preserve the buildings, the grounds, the natural area, the unique beauty of Campobello Island, and every day, not just today, we celebrate the shared heritage and friendship of our two countries. I want to recognize the dignitaries who have come to be with us today. The Honorable Brenda Murphy, Lieutenant Governor of New Brunswick, and Her Honor Linda Boyle. U.S. Ambassador to Canada, David L. Cohen. New Brunswick Premier Blaine Higgs. Maine Governor Janet Mills. Bernadette Jordan, Consul General in Boston. The Honorable Kathy Baucus, member of the New Brunswick Legislative Assembly, St. Croix, and minister responsible for seniors. Carlene Tremblay, State Office Representative, U.S. Senator Susan Collins. U.S. Representative Shelley Pingree of Maine. Hannah Collins, Deputy Director, Maine Office of Tourism. Yenna Hurley, New Brunswick Deputy Minister of Tourism and Heritage and Culture, with Melanie Devo, Assistant Deputy Minister, and Lynn White, Director of Tourism Development. Serge Bro, Executive Director of Trade Policy, New Brunswick Department of Intergovernmental Affairs. Mr. Sam Waterston. Julie LeBlanc, Field Unit Superintendent, New Brunswick South at Parks Canada. Amy Bracewell, Superintendent, Roosevelt Vanderbilt Historic Sites. Jennifer Anderson, Historian, Global Affairs Canada. Ron Beckwith, former RCIP Superintendent. Brad Henderson, Mayor of St. Andrews. Alex Carroll, Counselor, Rural Community of Campobello Island. And William Boone, Council President from Eastport. We would now like to welcome our next speakers to bring a word of greeting. First, the Honorable Brenda Murphy.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Bonjour tout le monde. Chief Bassett, Vice Chief Neptune, thank you very much for your warm welcome this morning, and it's an honor for me to be here on your traditional homeland territory. Ambassador Cohen, Consul General Jordan, Governor Mills, Premier Higgs, Senator King, distinguished guests, friends, chers amis, Linda et moi sommes ravis d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui pour souligner le 60e anniversaire du Parc International de Roosevelt Campobello. Linda and I are just delighted to be here this morning to join you for this celebration of the 60th anniversary of Roosevelt Campobello International Park. I'm a little bit embarrassed to say this is only my second time to Campobello, but I know I'm going to be back after today. But I hold very fond memories of my previous visit a few years back. This charming community is home to some of the friendliest people that you will ever meet. This island is truly a gem in our province with its picturesque coastal views and fascinating history. And as we traveled here this morning, I was just reminded of what a beautiful part of the world we live in and what a beautiful province we live in. It's not hard to imagine why the Roosevelt family, among many others, were drawn to Campobello Island and then returned year after year to experience the outdoor recreation and tranquility it had to offer. We are extremely fortunate to have such a direct connection to one of the most influential figures of the 20th century in our own backyard. Franklin Delano Roosevelt and Eleanor Roosevelt advocated for peace, for unity, and equity. They championed the well-being of marginalized groups and inspired people throughout the world to make a lasting impact within their communities, to become change makers themselves. The ideals that guided their actions resonate now, maybe more than ever. It's important to recognize their legacy, and it's reassuring to know that this historic site is in good hands. I'm grateful for the members of the Roosevelt Campobello International Park Commission and the staff who work so hard to share the stories, artifacts, and natural beauty of this park with visitors. Je suis reconnaissant envers tous les gens qui assuraient la préservation du Parc international de Roosevelt Campobello pour les générations futures. Au-delà de sa valeur patrimoniale, ce site est aussi un symbole de la coopération et de l'amitié qui perdure entre nos deux pays. Although the Roosevelt Campobello International Park sits on the Canadian side of the border, it forms an integral part of the American heritage. The 1964 treaty outlining the shared responsibility for the park's maintenance exemplifies the cooperative spirit that continues to unite Canada and the United States. It really is quite an extraordinary relationship, I think, and probably very, very unique. And one of the tour guides also this morning was telling me about, this would not happen now, but when the Roosevelts would come here, folks who lived here just bumped into them. Eleanor would ride her bike to the post office and then invite people back for tea. That wouldn't happen now, would it? We live in very different times, but what lovely memories. This is one of the places where, as neighboring nations, our history, our folklore, our culture, and traditions are deeply interwoven. We share much more than the longest international land border. Our nations are united by common values, objectives, and aspirations. Thank you very much for your presence here today in support of the ongoing success of this unique piece of our shared history. Merci beaucoup, Wooly One. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone, and thank you very much, Anne, and I want to thank you and Michelle for inviting me to join everyone here to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the founding of the Roosevelt Campobello International Park. Unlike the Lieutenant Governor, I'm slightly embarrassed to say that this is my first visit here, but I will echo her comments that it will not be my last. It's great to see so many friends here from the United States and from Canada, and I think everyone has been recognized. In the interest of time, I will not go through the entire group again, except to say that, in a sense, the guest list is emblematic of this special relationship that exists between Canada and the United States. Campobello Island itself is a geographic embodiment of the U.S.-Canada relationship, which is defined and strengthened by the unique and powerful bilateral ties that exist between our two countries. Originally settled by the Passamaquoddy people, the island is a unique part of New Brunswick, connected to the North American mainland via a sole bridge to the U.S. state of Maine. It seems that we were geographically preordained to be good neighbors. And of course, the island is home to the Roosevelt Campobello International Park, established in honor of President Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who spent many summers here and drew inspiration from Campobello's tranquility and immense beauty. Campobello is the only park in the world jointly owned, managed, and staffed by the peoples of two countries and administered by a joint commission in their name. It is a fitting symbol of the close relationship and friendship between Canada and the United States that President Roosevelt championed. During his address to the Canadian Parliament in August of 1943, President Roosevelt said, and I quote, "Your course and mine have run so closely and affectionately during these many long years that this meeting adds another link to that chain. I have always felt at home in Canada, and you, I think, have always felt at home in the United States." As I approach 3 years of service as the United States Ambassador to Canada, I find that I share that sentiment, and I fervently believe that we are continuing to add even more links that strengthen our friendship. It has truly been the honor of my lifetime to serve as President Joe Biden's personal representative to this great country. One of my top priorities, and one of the top priorities of the Biden-Harris administration, has been rebuilding and solidifying the close relationship between the United States and Canada. One of the best pieces of advice that I received before coming to Canada was to remember that President Biden did not appoint me to serve as the U.S. Ambassador to Ottawa. I'm the U.S. Ambassador to Canada. So I have made a conscious effort to get out of the Ottawa bubble and visit as much of this vast and breathtakingly stunning country as I can. My team tells me that since my arrival in Ottawa in December of 2021, I have traveled more than 175,000 kilometers. By the way, I use kilometers, I could do it in miles, but the kilometer number is larger, so it sounds more impressive. And I've literally defined what we mean when we talk about traveling from coast to coast to coast. I've been to every province, most multiple times. This is my 10th trip to Atlantic Canada, and I've been to nearly every territory, and we'll make it to the Northwest Territories in another couple of months, which will check that box too. My travels have given me the opportunity to attend hundreds of meetings and events and meet thousands of people from all walks of life: business owners, indigenous leaders, artists, community leaders, academics, first responders, religious leaders, the Prime Minister and premiers, and even hockey players and Olympic curlers. And I've had the privilege of meeting them where they live and work, in their offices, in their living rooms, in local restaurants and bars, even in community ice hockey rinks and curling clubs. The strength and durability of the U.S.-Canada relationship and the closeness of our partnership in the trade, defense, and security context is defined by our shared values and reinforced by countless friendships between individual citizens living on both sides of the border. We're definitely tied together by trade. A truly incredible 2.5 billion US dollars, or 3.4 billion Canadian dollars in goods and services crosses our shared border every day, generating and supporting millions of jobs in both of our countries. In 2023, Canada was the United States' top trading partner, and 35 states report that Canada is their top export destination as well. We are bound together by treaties like the USMCA, or just to prove that I speak Canadian, CUSMA, as it's known in this country, the cornerstone of our regional economic future that establishes the rules of the road for over $1.8 trillion in trade among the United States, Canada, and Mexico each year. Our countries share a commitment to diversity and inclusion, and we have maintained a particular focus on economic inclusion to ensure that everyone benefits from the post-pandemic economic recovery, including small and medium-sized enterprises, especially those owned by women, people of color, indigenous peoples, and other underrepresented groups. We are also linked together by our shared democratic values and our ironclad commitments to continental defense and to NATO. Our countries come together on the world stage as neighbors, partners, friends, and allies, committed to making life better for people in both of our countries and building a more free, equitable, secure, and prosperous world. 80 years after U.S., Canadian, and Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, the culmination of President Roosevelt's grand strategy for the European theater in World War II, we have been called upon once again to be the great arsenal of democracy as we support the Ukrainian people's fight against Russian President Vladimir Putin's brutal and illegal war of conquest. Since Russia began its illegal war in February of 2022, the United States and Canada have provided billions of dollars of security, financial, energy, and humanitarian assistance to Ukraine. We've worked closely on the procurement of desperately needed military equipment for Ukraine, including vital air defense systems. And the United States and Canada have welcomed hundreds of thousands of displaced Ukrainians to our countries. Here in North America, we continue to invest in our collective defense. We have closely collaborated on shared NORAD modernization projects to protect our homeland, including in the Arctic, and we remain focused on ensuring that our military equipment remains interoperable. Finally, as we stand here in this beautiful natural sanctuary, I am proud to say that we are actively working together toward a clean energy future to address the climate crisis. We've made investments involving major U.S. auto manufacturers and electric vehicle manufacturing in Canada, and critical minerals mining projects to ensure that we have secure supplies for what is needed to power those EVs. This collaboration is paving the way for a secure, clean supply chain that will bring climate and business benefits to both our countries for decades to come. So as you can see, the U.S.-Canada partnership has grown tremendously in the decades since President Roosevelt first took the oath of office. But the fundamentals of that partnership remain exactly the way he saw it and talked about it. Our relationship is truly unlike any other in the world. And as President Biden has said on his latest visit to Canada last March, there is nothing that we cannot accomplish when we work together. To quote President Roosevelt, the only limit to our realization of tomorrow will be our doubts of today. Let us move forward with strong and active faith. As we commemorate this 60th anniversary of the Roosevelt Campobello International Park and the close bonds of friendship it represents, let us resolve to move forward together into the next 60 years with, as President Roosevelt said, strong and active faith. Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us here today.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. And now I would welcome Consul General Bernadette Jordan.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to be here today. It's a wonderful day to celebrate such a great occasion, and it's a great day to celebrate this lovely milestone between Canada and the U.S. And I would also like to acknowledge the traditional lands of the Passamaquoddy, and that we're very honored to be here today. And, you know, it's fascinating to think that this beloved island, so simple, its beauty, could make for such a potent symbol between two of their nations' enduring friendships. And yet it's precisely the simplicity of our partnership that has allowed us, the relationship, to thrive as much as it has all these years. The simplicity stems from the fact that our relationship is rooted in the same values and principles. Coupled with our shared history, culture, it allows for a fundamental level of understanding between us that, like any two old friends, results in a shorthand of sorts in our conversations. When President Roosevelt stood at the base of the Peace Tower in Ottawa in 1943 and addressed the crowd of thousands who had gathered to listen, he spoke of the Canada-U.S. relationship as a chain made up of many links. His visit to Ottawa that day to meet with the Prime Minister Mackenzie King in the heady days of World War II was but one link in that chain. Another would come in 1964, when President Johnson and Prime Minister Pearson met at the height of the Cold War to sign the treaty creating this park. For centuries, our geopolitical partners elsewhere in the world have come and gone. We've only added to and strengthened the links that make up the chains of our nation's partnership. Some are formal links, connected and created when our leaders visit one another and issue robust statements with roadmaps for many ways in which we will continue to strengthen our ties, be it on economic or environmental matters, security, or social policy. There are treaties that make us partners in defense or free trade partners. And with our majestic rivers and wildlife knowing no bounds, we have also developed some incredible mechanisms to jointly steward the natural resources that so inspire us. But don't get me wrong, these declarations, treaties, and commissions are all very important elements of our relationship. But equally important are the thousands of informal links created between our communities each and every day. There are pleasant rivalries of minor hockey teams and softball leagues playing in tournaments on either side of the border. There are the newlyweds from Portland who choose to celebrate their honeymoon in Quebec City, or the NFL fans from Halifax who make the trip to Gillette Stadium to watch their beloved Patriots play. There's also communities like Gander in Newfoundland, Labrador, who threw open its doors and homes to welcome the stranded plane loads of passengers on 9/11. Or the residents of Boston who sent trainloads of supplies and people to Nova Scotia after the Halifax explosion in 1917. There are the linesmen and women from Eastern Canada who travel south to help restore power after a nor'easter blows through, just as the folks from New England went north last summer to my communities to help fight wildfires. And last night at dinner, we were talking about the amount of people from Quebec who came to work in Maine, in the mills, and have established strong Francophone communities now throughout New England. Alas, we currently live in a world marked by geopolitical turbulence, unpredictability, and uncertainty. The tectonic plates of the world order are shifting, and the structures that are built upon them are fracturing. All the more reason then to take a moment and to reflect on the good fortune that we have of being neighbors and partners and allies. Canadians know that we are stronger when we stand together with our American allies and friends in the face of some of the most important challenges in decades. And to my American friends here today, I hope you know that you too are stronger, more prosperous, and more resilient because you have Canada as your neighbor and your ally and your partner. Given the turbulent context in which we find ourselves, it's all the more important and remarkable that we can come together today to mark the Roosevelt Campobello International Park's 60th anniversary. No matter what else has transpired in the world over the last 60 years, the park stands as a continuing expression of our friendship and goodwill, a beautiful, unbreakable link for all of the world to experience. Thank you. Merci.
We welcome J Company, Royal Canadian Mounted Police Pipe Band from Moncton, New Brunswick, who are providing the music for today's ceremonies. J Company will now perform a short musical interlude for us.
I'd like to introduce Mr. John Williams, a member of Parliament in New Brunswick, Southwest. We apologize, we missed you in the list there, sir. And now I have the pleasure of introducing the Honourable Janet Mills, Governor of Maine.
I was listening to the litany of dignitaries here earlier. I think everybody in this audience is a dignitary of some sort, but particularly there was a minister of culture, I think. I thought, we don't have that in Maine. Should we? Maybe we just assume it. I don't know.
Maybe it's you.
I'm not going to judge. Something I could do in the next 2.5 years. I was also talking about some other differences between Canada and the United States, and Maine and Campobello this morning at breakfast, when I learned that the maximum campaign duration in Canada, maximum 78 days. Wow. Lucky you. I tell you, in my country, it feels like 78 years. Well, on January 22nd, 1964, President Lyndon Johnson and Canadian Prime Minister Lester Pearson, stood in the treaty room of the White House. Although they were about 800 miles from here, and one time zone away from here, they were there to sign an international treaty concerning a beloved island off the shores of New Brunswick known as Campobello. As Senator Ed Muskie described, Campobello was a place of rest and refuge for President Franklin Delano Roosevelt and First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, a place virtually cut off from the world that captivated them with its, quote, vistas that embrace the solidity of the coast and the exuberance of open water, sudden coves, weathered piers, the look of endurance and the evidence of man's enduring, end quote. A sight no doubt welcomed by the first family as they guided the United States through the Great Depression and global instability in the days leading up to World War II, and as they confronted the president's own significant illness. In his remarks signing the agreement under which the Roosevelt estate became an international park, jointly owned and operated by the United States and Canada, President Johnson said, quote, "This involves land and people. This is the heart of human concern and national kinship. Canada and the United States are not only good neighbors, we are good partners. We are going to stay good partners. Each will help the other to stay strong, to stay solvent, to stay stable, and to stay compassionate," end quote. President Johnson wished that this park would be an eternal symbol of the friendship between our two nations, indivisible, unshakable, because that's what President Roosevelt would have wanted. It is also a symbol of how a person or a people may overcome hardship and unexpected setbacks in life. And 60 years later, after other periods of economic instability and social upheaval and political conflicts and devastating wars between other countries, Campobello still stands as a symbol of the bond between us. In a time when we are bombarded every day with sharp and dangerous, divisive words, with anger and polarizing language, let us all the more appreciate the friendship we enjoy. Now, going back a moment to 1842, just for a moment, I don't know who persuaded Daniel Webster to sign off on this demarcation line, dividing our two countries in such a weird way. I'm not going to guess how that happened. There is speculation. What set this enclave of Canada separate from the state of Maine, which should have had it? I don't know. And of course, that was before a bridge. But I do know that it is a line that needs no wall. Maine is, of course, surrounded by Canada. We can't help but be neighbors and trading partners. We love you guys, we really do. More than 600 miles we share as a border, again, with no wall. You stand in Friars Bay and Mulholland Point, you can almost touch Lubec or Eastport. It's close enough to borrow a cup of sugar when you need to at low tide. The solid ground on which we stand this morning is Canadian soil. I'll give you that. But the air we breathe is air that we share. like the fish we all consume, the gulls that nest and fly around us, the waves that lap the shores of two different nations, different but similar, the rains that nourish our different grounds and gardens. No border, no line of demarcation can ever change these things we share. Our values, like civility and the use of language to promote progress and collaboration rather than disunity, anger, and division. As governor of the great state of Maine, I'm so proud to join you to honor the legacy of the Roosevelts and the peace they found here, to celebrate the enduring kinship of Canada and the United States, and to enjoy the beautiful vistas of this beloved island. The views, of course, which mostly are of Maine. We look back on you fondly, this beloved island, which still holds a place in all of our hearts. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Bonjour à vous tous. I'm honored to have the opportunity to join you here today as we celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Roosevelt Campobello International Park on the traditional lands of the Passamaquoddy. As I was traveling here, we had kind of a bit of an experience. So most people may know that we travel by motorcycle quite often. Now the security detail doesn't appreciate that much. But this time, my wife and I thought we were at our cottage up on East Grand Lake, and we were coming, we thought, well, we'll come through Maine and we'll travel on down to here. So we have a 25-year-old antique Jeep TJ, which had been out in storage for 8 months. So we decided the night before we were going to get it, so I got it out of storage and got it all cleaned up and ready to come. So it was just fine, but we got to far as Brookton, which is about 20 minutes or less from Forest City, from our cottage. And the brake seized on it, the front wheel cylinder. So as we talk about the closeness that we have, so I grew up right on the Forest City border, and my dad was a custom officer, and you know, my best friend was just across the border in Forest City, Maine. But here was a little garage that was closed, and I went in because the individual lived right behind the garage. That's always a mistake if you're a mechanic, isn't it? So he had fallen and hurt and broken his ribs. His wife was in the store, and he said, well, I'll go find him, but you know, he can't do much. I said, he doesn't need to do anything. I can fix it. I just need some tools. And so he came out and he opened up his garage. He allowed me to use all the tools in there. So I pulled the tire off and changed the caliper, or fixed it so I could drive it. And so it's we made it, and here we are. But it's just, it's an example of how someone, you know, friends are friends and neighbors are neighbors. And growing up on the border, it was so much that way for my entire childhood. It all changed in 9/11. And we've all experienced it, especially those living on the border. On the international lake, which East Grand is, I mean, there's a clear division on the lake now, and a very much of a surveillance and helicopters flying over and all that. And that's not the life I enjoyed as a child, and it's not the issue that, although my dad got a little upset sometimes because I would go back and forth across the border, whether it was open or not, to visit my friend. I don't do that today, but I used to do it then. In an increasingly divisive world, it's important to appreciate the things that connect one another. And certainly what we have here that we've seen all through my childhood, the industry, the logging industry, and feeding the mill in Woodland, that was just a way of growing up. I knew all the drivers. I used to travel on the trucks back and forth to the mill. One driver particularly was relevant because he would always stop in Princeton and get an ice cream on the way back and share. So it's part of what we've grown up with. So having the world turned kind of upside down now, it's more important than ever that we find ways that we can unite each other. And this is such a shining example. I think I heard someone say that last night about the relevance of today, and today's relevance, and the response was today's relevance of this park and what it represents, and what the president represented is so much more relevant and timely than it may have been at any time in history. Alors que le monde est de plus et plus divisé, il est important d'apprécier les choses qui permettent de nous rapprocher. For 60 years, this park has been home to many happy memories for individuals and families from across Canada, the United States, and the world. I have been here more than twice. I just got to reference that. Thanks to the park, tourism, and locals alike, we've been able to experience and appreciate the beauty of this region of New Brunswick, just as a young Franklin Delano Roosevelt and his family would have in the late 1800s and the early 1900s. When I was listening to Governor Mills, kind of talk about how did this ever get to be a New Brunswick, I think it's important to recognize that I think it was the British that owned most of northern Maine at one time. So, it is what it is. When the restoration and the upkeep of this historical space, visitors are able to take a step back in time and slow down for a moment and think of what life is all about. We discover Campobello was like when the Roosevelt family spent time in their summer cottage on the Bay of Fundy. And isn't it true that the president's wife would be able to travel and get on the bicycle and go visit neighbors and friends? And don't we wish that was back again? Because that's, to me, it seems that there is an unrest in every society. Certainly I experienced it as Premier of New Brunswick. And maybe most of you say, well, yeah, I know, I read about it. But it's everybody wants something. And they want something out of government. They want something that they themselves maybe don't want to work to achieve, but they want it from government. And whose government but representing all the people? But getting back to certainly what we've seen here for the dedication, the grounds are beautiful. I'm sure a lot of time was spent getting ready for this event, without question. The dedicated staff at the park helped create an exciting, authentic experience for everyone to enjoy that continues to attract investors from across North America and beyond. With beautiful gardens, extensive trail, refurbished historical buildings, and guided educational tours, there is something for everyone. And I understand last year welcomed more than 225,000 visitors. And it's exciting to hear they're on track to exceed that number this year. And this year we have sunshine. Last year we had a lot of rain, if you recall. So it's very good to see the tourism pick up. And it was also referenced, I think, 35% of Canadian tourists that are coming, which is, we're putting a lot of effort into tourism throughout New Brunswick, obviously, but throughout Canada and throughout the U.S. and throughout our neighboring. So that's another good reason for this to be New Brunswick, because it fits our tour guide. The opportunity, un grand nombre de ces visiteurs se rendent également dans notre communauté de Brunswick, ce qui aide à stimuler notre économie globale. Et tous en sommes very reconnaissants. The park also provides numerous jobs for New Brunswickers as one of the largest employers in the area. On the whole, this park plays a large role in the economy of both Maine and New Brunswick due to it being top tourism attraction. People may come for the park, but once they are here, they discover all the other treasures the region has to offer. The site is special, not just because of the benefits it brings New Brunswickers, but also because it's a prime example of collaboration and unity between Canada and the United States. And certainly that's been touched on significantly, and Ambassador Cohen talking about the significance today, significance of the trading that we have between nations. But I will reference that just recently, so it's only been a week and a half ago, I met with all the Canadian premiers across our country. And it's our annual meeting where we talk about issues that are important to each of our provinces, but this time, the discussion was more relevant than ever of what's important to our nation. And the topic was, how do we build and strengthen and continue to grow our relationship with the U.S.? Because there's concerns, obviously, of what's going abroad and all the challenges that we're facing collectively around the world. And I think that for us to be united as we must be, because to me as a kid, the border didn't exist, but I know very much today it does exist. And we talk about the trade patterns, and I know in meeting with the Premier of Ontario at that time, or last week, 2 weeks ago, he said that Ontario is the largest trading partner with 17 states, and the second largest with 11 others. And the trade numbers that were quoted here today by the Ambassador, I mean, it is huge, it's significant, and nowhere else does it exist in the world with countries that are so aligned. And I'm going to give another little example of how misaligned we can be on philosophy, not between Canada and the U.S., but to what we're looking at, and we see it in the U.S. and the development of clean energy, and we're all focused on clean energy development. And we're also focused on how do we reduce the emissions through shutting down, let's say, coal plants with the replacement fuel of gas, and then moving into more renewables and batteries. But I was asked in an interview about, well, we don't need to, build all these electric cars here. We can buy them from China. I said, really? We can buy and think that we're saving the world on emissions by buying and supporting the dirtiest country in the world in relation to emissions. 1,100 coal plants are currently operating in China, and they're building an average of 2 a week. So I say that because we're not building coal plants. We're finding ways to shut them down. And we know coal plants have played a key role in the economy of both the US and Canada, but we're all focused on the same process as we move forward. But we have to survive in our economy and find places for people to work and live, and not just look at cheap alternatives that are not meeting our objectives. So I'm proud to have grown up on the border, the longest international border. And I'm proud to say one of my best friends, who's still a very close friend of mine, lived in Maine, and I'm proud to see that our families have grown up beside one another and intermarried between one another, and it's just the border didn't exist when families come together. And I feel like our country and the U.S. need to once again be stronger and greater families together. Thank you.
Thank you, Premier. I now invite the J Division band to play for us again, please.
And now it is my honor to ask Senator Angus King, one of our commissioners, to come up and welcome and introduce our final speakers.
I'll be very brief. You can tell that because my name's not on the program. Really. I've never heard a politician who can change a caliper before. Mr. Premier, I'm very impressed. And I thought my name was a pretty solid Scottish name, Angus King, until I met our trooper who's looking after us today from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Scott Mackenzie. How's that for a Scottish? I do want to share just a couple of thoughts, and one is that there is a typo on the program. And the typo is at the end of the United States national anthem. Because the last line of our national anthem, unlike pretty much every national anthem in the world, is a question. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? That's a question. And I hope every time you hear the anthem from now on, you'll think about that and the fact that car alarms go off at the worst damn time. My opponents will stop at nothing this year. Check your email. Okay. The point I was making is that that's an important question. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner still wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave? I believe that the answer to that question is contained in it. That we will only be the land of the free as long as we're the home of the brave.
And each generation is called upon to exhibit that gallantry, that courage to support our country and our countries, our neighboring countries, in this difficult and often challenging world. I think it's important that we're here in this building because this was the home of two of the towering figures of the 21st century. And if you had to summarize their philosophy, their thought, their leadership, the importance they gave to the world, to me the word is hope. Is hope. President Roosevelt famously, in his first inaugural, said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." I think that's an important message for today, where our politics seem to be driven more by fear and resentment than by hope. Napoleon once said, "A leader is a dealer in hope." And Franklin D. Roosevelt was certainly that leader. And Eleanor Roosevelt, the principal author, the sponsor of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, that also is a gesture of hope. And so I think that's what this day represents, because it was in this building that Franklin D. Roosevelt woke up one morning and couldn't move. And it was hope that carried him through that ordeal and led him to be one of the great leaders in the history of our country or any other country. Now, my real job today is to introduce our final two speakers who are going to bring greetings. The first is Carleen Tremblay, who is representing Senator Susan Collins, and that's an important job. But Carleen's really important job today is she has a cottage on Campobello Island. Carleen, join us, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Carleen Tremblay, and I work for Senator Susan Collins. And I'm also a part-time resident here. I get here as often as I can. But Senator Collins is unable to attend today because she's at the christening at Bath Iron Works for a new destroyer. But she did want me to come and deliver a greeting, as well as a flag that was flown over the United States Capitol in honor of the park's 60th anniversary. So I'd like to do that now before I give my greeting.
Thank you.
So it's very strange to be introduced by my boss's boss here. We don't usually do that, so thank you very much, Senator King. I appreciate that. It's an honor to be here on behalf of the Senator. Roosevelt International Park and I have something very big in common this year because it's also my 60th birthday. So 1964 was a good year, apparently. And as mentioned, I also, my husband and I found this beautiful island 24 years ago when our children were little and toddlers. And they have spent summer after summer here toddling around this island. And I like to think of the footsteps of the Roosevelt family. And we've taught our children the history and the stories that have been, I'm sure, transcended down the Roosevelt family line. So it's an honor to be able to walk here and be at peace here. And it is a place that I come to and my husband comes to during a busy life to really decompress. So welcome to Campobello. And again, it is an honor to be here. On behalf of the Senator, I'd like to share a greeting with you. Dear friends, when President Franklin Delano Roosevelt recalled his happy childhood memories of Campobello Island, he described the beautiful region shared by the people of Maine and New Brunswick as the finest example of friendship between nations, permanent friendship between nations that we can possibly have. The 60th anniversary of the establishment of Roosevelt Campobello International Park is a time to celebrate that friendship, the beautiful and historic park that preserves the Roosevelt Cottage on the New Brunswick Island opened on August 20th, 1964. It was established by treaty between the United States and Canada and is the only memorial to an American president on Canadian soil. The park celebrates friendship on several levels. It commemorates the friendship between two men, one of America's greatest presidents, and one of Canada's greatest prime ministers. Franklin Roosevelt and Mackenzie King could not have been more dissimilar in personality, yet they saw beyond the superficial traits and into the depths of character. Together, they led their nations out of the Great Depression and made North America the arsenal of democracy, so crucial to victory in the Second World War. Although only one lived to see the peace, they forged an alliance that has allowed that peace to endure. It is about the friendship between two communities. By land, Campobello Island is accessible only from Lubec, Maine, our nation's easternmost town, via the FDR Memorial Bridge, itself a stunning example of international cooperation and friendship. The people of Maine and New Brunswick share a past, a present, and the future. They are bound together by a rugged yet rewarding way of life, by personal and family ties, by commerce, and by mutual assistance. They earn their livelihoods from the land and from the sea, and they care for this special place so that those livelihoods may continue for generations to come. First and foremost, the park exemplifies the friendship between two nations. The United States and Canada share the world's longest undefended border, a common history, and a similar culture. In trade, we are each other's best customers. In defense, we are each other's strongest allies. We are, as one of the park's exhibits proclaims, good neighbors, best friends. More than mere geography, the friendship between the United States and Canada stands upon the values of freedom, human rights, and the rule of law that we share, and that are a guarantee that this friendship will endure. They are what make the 60th anniversary of the Roosevelt Campobello International Park an event so worthy of the celebration. My best wishes to all of you. Regards, Senator Susan Collins, United States Senator. Thank you all so much. Enjoy your day.
Before introducing my friend Sam Waterston, just a couple of quizzes for you. What is the only state in the United States that borders only one other state? Maine. Because the only state it borders is New Hampshire. Otherwise, it's Quebec and New Brunswick. So just so you have that. The other piece of information is the definition of a Canadian. A Canadian is an unarmed North American with health insurance. Sam Waterston, you all know Broadway, movies, and a TV show which I'm told Law & Order is showing somewhere in the world every minute of every day. And it's my honor to introduce Sam, but of all the roles he has played, the most recent is voice of the Roosevelt Campobello International Park. He is the voiceover, he is the person that narrates the new film in the visitor center, which I hope you all will enjoy. And his speaking in that film adds a great deal of impact and power to the important message that the film conveys about Franklin and Eleanor. So it's a delight. Oh, I wanted to say one other thing. I just remembered. I wanted to especially thank Chief Bassett and Vice Chief Neptune, and I really like the title Vice Chief. I'd like to introduce my Vice Chief, Mary Herman, who's right over here. She's the one rolling her eyes. But I want to thank the Chief and Vice Chief for being here and for their generous welcome to their ancestral lands. It's very, very meaningful to us, an important part of the relationship. Donald Soktoma is now on our commission from the Passamaquoddy tribe, and it's an important part of the heritage of both this island and this park. So I did want to acknowledge that. Now, Sam Waterston, the new voice of the park. Please join us.
So you're all familiar with the phrase, the last shall be first and the first shall be last. But this is really an occasion where the last is the last, because imagine my surprise this morning getting up and reading this and finding out that I was not only the last speaker here, but a speaker here. So this is not exactly an impromptu speech, but it's the closest thing I've ever been to speaking off the cuff. I'm only here, as Senator Angus King was saying, because he honored me by asking me to narrate the video that introduces visitors to this unique park. Lynn and I are just delighted to finally be here to see this place in person. It's a place that has loomed very large in my imagination all my life. It just so happens that I went to the same school that Franklin Delano Roosevelt went to. So he's been part of the mythology of my own life for all my life. For the first 4 years of my life, Franklin Delano Roosevelt was the one and only President of the United States. All the succeeding years have been lived under the broad umbrella that he, his administration, the New Deal, and the vision of America it both grew out of and created. That umbrella has been my shelter ever since. Our ideas to this day about fairness, about rising above hardship, and what it is to be an American in the world, all of that. So, coming here is coming home for Lynn and me, and I thank you for the last 60 years, and for the next 60 years, and for the welcome that the Passamaquoddy made, out of which all of this came, and for all that is to be written starting now. Congratulations and happy birthday.
Thank you, Sam. And the voice is incredible on the film. I had the unfortunate pleasure of trying to do the French part, and when I heard the English part, I said, "You guys must be kidding. I don't have that voice." Alors que nous entamons cette saison marquante, réaffirmons notre engagement envers l'excellence, l'intendance et la communauté. Honorons l'héritage de Franklin et Eleanor Roosevelt et embrassons leurs esprits de résilience, de compassion et de service envers les autres. Et continuons à bâtir des ponts de compréhension et d'amitié au-delà des frontières, comme ils l'ont fait à leur époque.
Together, we stand on the threshold of a new chapter in this park's history. Let us write it with bold strokes of kindness, of empathy, dedication, and above all else, respect for each other, no matter what the differences or challenges are that we face together. Let me thank John Southern, our superintendent and executive director, and his wonderful team, without whom all of this would not be possible. John, thank you. May the bonds forged here among colleagues and friends, under the watchful eye of soaring eagles and whispering pines, endure for generations to come. We welcome you, dear friends, to Roosevelt Campobello International Park. Here's to 60 seasons of memories made and countless more ahead of us. Please remain standing for the departure of the Lieutenant Governor and Her Honor Linda Boyle, commissioners, and distinguished guests. Following them, everyone, please join us under the tent for some refreshments. Thank you so much for being here.
And none of them are running. That's always a good sign. I think we can move now.
A news and public affairs production of CHCO-TV, New Brunswick's only source for independent community television.